debt and how it affects our relationships is such an important question. I took a poll on my Instagram this week, and 25% of you stated that debt is something you definitely would not go into a relationship with another person. 45% of you said you would. There are many different reasons why being in a relationship and having debt can be detrimental for the longevity of your relationship. I took part of the poll was asking questions of exactly how do you feel when you find out that you and your partner essentially have different values. I have my phone with me because I thought it was so interesting that when I was, quite frankly, at the hairdressers, I polled men and women that were getting their haircuts because, of course, it's a captured audience. And it was so interesting to hear both people's perspective, both genders' perspective of how being in love with someone who actually has a lot of debt can really affect the longevity of a relationship. Before we get into it, my name is Vanessa. I'm a certified life coach. I'm a mother of 4. My oldest is autistic. I have 2 fantastic stepchildren, and I have a chosen daughter. I love my practice. Everything about it is helping individuals to become compassionate, to become loving, and become solution focused in their everyday life. And not only having that perspective for themselves, but also having it for other people around them. Part of having healthy, flexible, robust relationships is recognizing that every challenge you go through helps you gain some part of wisdom. You learn a lesson from it and you move on. So that's what you and I are doing with this channel, is having all these fantastic, honest conversations that help us to be accountable and responsible for ourselves so that we show up being healthy in our relationships. So, debt in our relationship. This was the poll that I had at the hairdressers. So what men and women both stated was the importance of being able to communicate. Because my question was, how do you get in a relationship with someone and not recognize that they're in debt? Somewhere within the first 6 months, as one of the women said, the first 6 months is just love and sex and it's all fantastic, which is so true. But you don't really get into those heartfelt questions that focus on the value that I have an individual as you have as an individual. What are our prospective values? You don't really get into those conversations until after 6 months or close to a year. And by that time, you're already in love with the person. So it makes it difficult to kind of come out of this. So what one of the women recommended was actually having the heartfelt conversation. When you do recognize that your partner has a lot of debt, it's, okay, why are you in debt? Are you choosing to make the right decision so that you can actually pay through your debt and move forward? And if not, what do you need from me as your supportive partner to help you be able to pay off your debts so that we can actually go through and cultivate a deep, loving, respectful relationship where we can actually fulfill our own goals of buying a home, having children, having houses, having, going on vacations, because having credit is so really important, and it can be detrimental if you have a very low score on how you live the quality of your life. The second thing was how stressful it could be in a relationship. And this came from one of the men at the hairdressers. And he says, depending on how you were raised, for example, if you come from a family who has minimal resources and you grow up telling yourself, as an adult, I'm going to ensure that I have, for example, 200,000 crowns in Swedish, right? 200,000 crowns is the buffer that I have in the account to ensure that all of my bills are paid and that I feel safe. And he stated, when you come with minimal resources and you actually build up that, and then you come with a partner who doesn't have the same thought process when it comes to valuing having safety and having longevity financially and being able to break down what are your short-term and what are your long-term goals, that he actually said that he would feel very bad understanding that his partner doesn't respect his own sacrifice and his own stress level when it came to his finances. And it was really interesting because this client also shared a story about how one of his best friends was with a woman who was the love of his life, and he cared for her so very much. And they purchased a home together, he not knowing what her financial, her ability or her inability to be financially responsible. And they bought a home together, and she was not the kind of person who actually focused on being financially responsible. She was buying clothes, and she was, buying stuff for the house, and not actually paying and being responsible when it came to him paying half the mortgage and her paying half the mortgage. And what ended up happening to their relationship, and he said it didn't matter how much his best friend loved her, is that he had to let her go because her inability to be responsible financially was affecting his own ability to be responsible. And he did not want to live a life where he could not be managing his resources and be able to trust his partner of not spending all of the money that they had in their savings account, which is such an interesting perspective. The other thing that someone brought up during this questioning that I had was, what are your stressors around money? Here on this channel, we talk about numbing techniques. How do you run away from your responsibilities, let's say, when you get super stressed? And there are 6 different ways. One of them is gambling. One of them is eating, which means you're escaping from the challenge that's in front of you because you're so stressed and you don't know how to handle it. So instead of looking forward and getting past your emotions and getting past your thoughts and really focusing on what is the challenge before me, what is a little plan that I create really quickly for my long-term or my short-term goals, so to ensure that I attain it and move forward and take that first step. Sometimes people are unable or don't have the tools to be able to manage their thoughts and manage their emotions, to be able to look at the challenge for what it is. So they use an escape mechanism. An escape mechanism is where you eat to comfort yourself, or where you gamble to escape the situation that you're in, or where you drink excessively to just numb yourself out of the difficult situation that you're in. Other people shop excessively to get the quick high of, I feel good about myself. And then when they're done, then they recognize they're in the same position that they were in financially, and that is the stressor. The fourth one is gaming or watching television or Netflix excessively. And by this I mean like 5 or 6 hours every day to escape the reality of the life that you're in. And the fourth one is having, sexually inappropriate behavior where you're doing things that could be harmful for yourself or for your others because you don't want to deal with the situation. As well as drugs is such a clear way of escaping reality. So what do we do as a couple who is together and you recognize what are the responsibilities that one and the other person has with one party has debt? First of all, as a couple, you have the conversation and be really honest and be very vulnerable with your partner and state, hey, this is the situation that I'm in. This is how much debt I have. This is how much I make every single month, and this is how much I'm paying off my debt. So in the course of 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, I will be completely debt-free. And this is something that's really important because as the other partner who's there for support, they can recognize that after a short period of time or a longer period of time that the debt will be minimized or will be completely gone. For example, out of university, you usually come out of university with a $40,000, $50,000, or $60,000 debt, which is a big debt. That's a down payment on a house. It's, buying a car cash, 2 cars cash. It is going for a trip around the world. When you think about $50,000 or $60,000, it's a lot, and it's something that really affects your credit score. It affects how much you can put down on a house when you're building a life together. So having these honest, vulnerable conversations with your partner helps your partner and yourself recognize, I'm accountable to what's going on in my life, and I'm being responsible by ensuring that I'm paying off my debt. The question that I asked during the poll that I did on my Instagram at Words by Vanessa was, would you go in a relationship? Would you go into a relationship with someone knowing that they have a huge debt? When you recognize that your values are completely different, where one person is very frivolous and they spend a lot of money and the person doesn't. Or when you're in a relationship and you recognize that one person has absolutely no financial responsibility and the other one does. I had a friend of mine who they were married for, I think, 20 years or so before they got a divorce. And 2 of the reasons why they got a divorce, the first one was they didn't communicate effectively. They weren't on the same page. They weren't able to resolve things. It was basically they had 2 kids, and one of the partners felt like they were responsible for 3 kids, not having a partner and 2 kids, which is a very tough situation to be in. And quite frankly, it's a lot more normal than you might really think. The second thing that was the complete demise of their relationship was that one partner was completely financially irresponsible. So this person, they had a really good income, and every month they got paid once a month, and they would speak with their spouse and say, hey, listen, this is the money that we have for the month. These are the bills that we have. This is the money that's going to go into our savings. This is the money that's going to go for the kids' activities. This is the money that we're saving. So for our next vacation, one person was a planner, was incredibly not frivolous. They were very responsible financially. The other person would say, sure, of course, I listen. I hear the plan, and I am completely on board with the plan. And then within 2 weeks, the spouse would go off and buy a super expensive pair of boots that took out 1/3 of the finances for the month. And this happened over and over and over and over again throughout the course of the 20-year relationship. And this is the breakdown that happens when, as a couple, or before you become a couple, you don't have those important conversations that help you recognize, do we have the same values? Are we both accountable and responsible for ourselves financially and emotionally? And are we balanced, right? Because when you come together, whatever is a stressor or whatever is a point that you need to show growth in will be magnified when you come in a relationship. So being able to have these great conversations where you can be accountable and honest is such a great foundation to establish safety. Because let's be honest, you and I both know that throughout our life, there's always going to be another challenge. And the way that you have learned how to handle and deal with a challenge might be completely different than the way your spouse has learned to handle and deal with a challenge. So the important thing is to be able to have these open conversations, to be committed to one another, and to be absolutely able to compromise when you understand that there is something that both of you are looking to accomplish in the short run or in the long run. It's about recognizing that you're a team and you're working together. It's not that one person is doing anything towards the other or against the other with any kind of malicious intent. It's recognizing that both of you are here together and that you're working towards being financially responsible. And if you need help understanding how to become financially responsible, then you go see and talk to a person, because that's part of being accountable and responsible to yourself. Recognizing, hey, being financially responsible is a skill, and it's a skill that is important for me to cultivate, not only to be strong and stand on my own as my own individual person, but also in my relationship where I'm interconnected, where I can support my partner and my partner can support me while we're moving forward together and being able to fulfill and accomplish the goals that we have for one another. So when you think about your own beautiful, marvelous life, can you see where you and your partner are compatible in being financially responsible? Or is there work that needs to be done on either both of you collectively or independently? Do you, when you have a self-reflection, a quick moment to reflect upon yourself, can recognize that, I am financially responsible, or no, I'm not? And if you're not, it's okay, because everything in life has to do with developing a skill. If it's something that when you were a child and at home, you can now in retrospect look back upon your family and your parents and recognize, hey, my parents weren't very good savers, or perhaps they were unable to be able to save money. They just lived from paycheck to paycheck, and you have learned that habit. It's important to recognize, even if you are working or living paycheck to paycheck, break it down and recognize, why is it that you're living paycheck for paycheck? How much does your apartment cost? Or how much is your mortgage? What kind of cars are you driving? What kind of clothes are you wearing? What kind of food are you eating? How often are you ordering to go to come to the house? How often are you going out and being social with your friends? These are the things that are so important to recognize, because it helps you understand how much money is going out and how much money am I bringing in. And in the long run or short run, what are my immediate goals and what are my long-term goals for financially being able to be accountable and responsible for you as your own human being. So as you're moving forward in this life, have these honest, vulnerable, responsible conversations with your partners so you're both on the same page. And you start recognizing that, okay, so we live in an apartment, and perhaps at this moment, the apartment is too expensive for the two of us. So what do? You go looking for an apartment in a different area of town that's less, and you take that money and you put it in savings, because you know in the course of the next 2 years, you want to purchase a home. And that home is going to come from the down payment that you have saved to ensure that you are financially responsible. If you don't have the assets to be able to do that, you can still think about, what is your life going to look like now at 20, then at 30, then at 50, then at 60, and when you retire? How do you want your life to look like, and how do you measure that? How are you financially responsible for yourself to ensure that you have a healthy quality of life? And the most important thing to recognize when it comes to lifestyle is that each of us live completely differently. The way I live is going to be different than the way that you live, and the way that you live is going to be different than how I live. Comparing yourself to what I have or what I don't have, or my comparing myself to what you have or don't have, in my opinion, is part of the reason why people are so financially stressed, because they're constantly trying to keep up with what we say in the US is you're trying to keep up with the neighbors. If the neighbors buy a brand new car, then you push to have a brand new car. If you live in a nice neighborhood but you want to live in a nicer neighborhood, you push yourself push, 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 push. When maybe financially it's not a responsible decision, but because you want to keep up with your friends and your family, you push yourself, and then you're tapped. And then you're incredibly stressed in your everyday life. And it's such a sad and miserable way to live your life when you're constantly tapped and constantly worried about what do your finances look like. So when you have this honest conversation with your spouse and recognize this is how much money I make or we make a month. Collectively, this is what we have. You look at a budget and you go, this is how much goes out for our mortgage or for our rent. This is how much we use for our food. This is how much we use for our electricity, our water, our home insurance, our personal insurance, our car insurance, our car payments, for entertainment, for savings. And it's always important to have a just in case account. You know, a just in case the washer breaks, or a just in case, as this just happened to my mom the other day, a pipe burst under one of the houses and she had to completely fix that area of the house, and it cost her $11,000, where my brother and I both chipped in to help her because she did not have the resources to be able to do that. And having a water leak is a really detrimental expense, and you must fix it or it causes even more damage. So when you're going out there, remember that you are completely accountable and responsible for your own beautiful and marvelous life. Everything that you do is a skill. So learning to be fiscally responsible is a skill. And if you don't know how to do it, there's so many resources. You can look things on YouTube. You can call an accountant. There's so many free classes that you can take on how to budget. There's so many things you can ask one of your friends or your parents if they're fiscally responsible, and ask them, how do you do this, so that you can copy paste it. Now, as you're going out in your wonderful life, remember you are incredibly powerful and you're capable of doing anything you wish to do. Every Monday on my YouTube channel, on my Instagram channel, Words by Vanessa, I always put out a poll for the week, so that on Wednesday I film these videos, and on Thursday I pull out fantastic information that's relatable to spirituality, health and wellness, relationships, and lifestyle. It's the things that you and I deal with, work with, are concerned with, and live with every single day. I trust this information suits you well. Comment below and subscribe. Do a thumbs up and letting me know that you like the information and the content that I'm putting out for you. And you know what? Do me a favor. In the comments below, write down how this information serves you, and also, are there other topics that you want to know about in relationship to health and wellness, spirituality, autism, lifestyle, and relationships? I'll see you next Thursday.